Good evening, everyone. We have Spanish interpretation available. Look at the bottom of the screen, and where you see the chat button, there is also an interpreter button, globe with a grid. You just need to press that and select English or Spanish.
Hola a todos, tenemos interpretación en español disponible. Mire a la parte inferior de la pantalla, donde ve el botón de chat, hay un botón que parece un globo. Haga selección y presione español.
I would like to welcome you to the Hilco Redevelopment Partners Lawndale Fleet Storage Yard Development and Community Update. My name is Jasmine Sessoms, and I serve as the Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs here at Hilco Redevelopment Partners. I would like to go over a few procedural notes prior to the start of the presentation. I would like to thank Alderman Rodriguez and his staff for attending our meeting this evening and being a part of several coordination meetings, project updates, and site tours throughout the span of the project. We will be making a presentation to provide the latest updates on the project, focusing on progress on the site since our last community update in December, and what community members can expect to see on and around the site as we work to complete construction this summer. I want to remind everyone, every slide is available in both English and Spanish. We will then move to question and answers. If you are interested in asking questions, we ask that you utilize the chat feature. Also, you can find that also down at the bottom of the screen. We will be gathering questions received during the meeting, and we will answer as many as we can during the question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Any questions we are unable to cover in the time we have allotted for tonight's meeting will be saved so we can provide written answers to all and post the question and answers on our website in a couple of weeks. We are also recording this meeting, and we will also post a recording of this meeting on our website as well. We're here to listen to your feedback and answer your questions to the greatest extent that we can. I would also like to state that this is an update on the Lawndale Fleet Storage Yard project, and we ask that you keep your questions focused on this project. Again, thank you all for being here tonight. We truly appreciate it. Next slide, please. On tonight's agenda, we will do an introduction to Hilco Redevelopment Partners, talk about the location, timeline, design, sustainable infrastructure, our traffic plan, of course, community engagement, and then take questions and answers. First, our introduction to Hilco Redevelopment Partners. Our mission is to take on complex projects where we return economic opportunity to industrial sites that have run their useful life. We have been successfully acquiring and redeveloping obsolete properties in cities across the country, bringing new economic life to places in need of revitalization and opportunities. Next, you will hear from Nick Pilara, our VP of Development. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Jasmine, and welcome everyone. Looking forward to providing an update to everyone this evening. So again, my name is Nick Pilara, VP of Development for the HRP team here out of the Chicago office. I've been working on this project with the rest of the team here for quite some time. We're going to start off the update here with just a general location of the project, and then get into design details, progress, et cetera, as we kind of laid out there in the agenda. So next slide, please. So as you can see here, we have a location map with the Lawndale Fleet Storage Yard indicated there, kind of in the center of the map with the star. Just to the west is the Target Flow Center, the Exchange 55 facility that's roughly one block west, or approximately 900 feet, which the two are connected with the access road, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. To the north of the Lawndale property is the CN Railroad, and then a couple of industrial properties across the railroad. Directly to the east is the Paul Simon Job Corps Center. To the south, the Sanitary Ship Canal. On the other side of that is the Stevenson, Corwith, and then on the west side of Pulaski, obviously, is the ComEd Switch Yard and the 36th Street Industrial Park. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about the timeline of this project from when we started to where we're at currently. So we first started this project back in March and May of 2021, when we engaged different city officials with preliminary design and thoughts about redeveloping this project, which then we progressed into a community engagement event and working on our zoning opinion letter that was issued in July 21. And then into January of 2022, we acquired the property. Again, worked with the alderman and his staff on our preliminary design and where we're progressing from a project perspective. And then in April, we really kicked off the project with our permitting, brought our general contractor on board, who's Bear Construction. And then, from April on, really got into the nuts and bolts of moving forward here with construction. In early June, we commenced site work, actually mobilized the team and received our permits. And then going into August and over the summer, we really focused on the site remediation work, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And then the last time we spoke, we were talking about the earth retention system, or the sheet pile wall that is around some of the perimeter of the property. That was the work we were focused on in the fall. And then when we last spoke in December. And then currently where we're at, we're into the finishing stages of construction. So the guardhouse, the office building, the maintenance building are all well underway. And then the parking lot is currently being built with curbs going in, site lighting, landscape areas are starting to take shape. And then we'll be focused on, again, paving, landscaping, the finishing touches here over the next couple of months as we look to complete the project in Q3 of this year. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk about design. Next slide. So one of the follow-up questions and question that we've heard is, how is this project, allowed to move forward? So the current underlying zoning of M3-3, a heavy manufacturing district zoning, allows a commercial use such as a parking lot to move forward as of right. The site is roughly 20 acres, with the majority of the property being east of Lawndale Avenue, just about 18.8 acres. And then from the two images on the bottom of the screen here, you can see summer of 21, before we purchased the property, the kind of sightly Blythe that was there with the container stacking, the truck repair, trailer repair type of activities, to a current aerial image of the site, which we'll get into a little further here, where we're actually, again, into these final stages of construction. But, we've cleaned up the property, finished the remedial work that we had to do. And now again into those finishing stages. Next slide, please. So a couple of keynotes on the fleet storage yard. So our tenant target will operate the property as a sustainable, state-of-the-art trailer storage yard with extensive landscaping and an operation plan that will result in reduced amount of congestion and traffic. And we'll talk about the traffic plan here in a couple of slides down the road. The trailer storage yard will be used for operations at Exchange 55 or the Flow Center just to the west, as well as other regional target operations. The trailer storage yard has been entered into the voluntary site remediation program with the IEPA to achieve a comprehensive no further remediation determination. And currently where we're at in that process is we've completed all the required remedial action on site. So we had a few areas of surface level contaminants that needed to be removed. That has been done. And then again, the last portion of what we have to do is actually construct the project, finish the parking lot, and then the green space areas. And then, as I talked about previously, the property from the previous operations and the prior ownership did not meet current zoning ordinances or building codes. And we're currently, bringing that up to current standards. Next slide, please. So a little more detail as to exactly what we're building. So the site will have a total of 317 parking stalls, 25 of those which will be for the employees, the ones that will be working out of that office area, as well as the maintenance building and the guardhouse. We have 27 tractor stalls, and then we have 265 trailer parking stalls, which is predominantly the area that you're looking at in the photo in the bottom left-hand corner. On site, there will be 3 buildings that you'll see, and 2 inspection canopies. So we have a 732 square foot guardhouse, which would just be in the image bottom left. We have a 1,500 square foot multi-function building, or what we also call the office building, which is just off the image right. And then a question that we heard from last time is the maintenance building. So the maintenance building you can see in the image here, that's the square precast structure on the image left. So it's roughly a 7,600 square foot building. And what Target will be doing inside that building is they'll be backing trailers in and performing maintenance on them. They'll be changing tires, inspecting brake lines, inspecting the brakes, et cetera. And that's the main function of that maintenance building. Next slide, please. So this is an aerial from the last time we spoke. So what you can see here is the retaining wall in the upper right-hand corner is being installed. The earthwork is ongoing. We're starting to grade the site, level it out. And then another piece of work is the site utilities are being installed. What you can't see here is we've already, again, completed our remedial action requirements. Remove those contaminants from the site, and then we're again into the final stages of that site remediation program. Next slide, please. So this is a current aerial of the site from just a week ago or so. So what you can see in this image, you can see the retaining wall that makes nice sharp corners kind of at the bottom of the image. The bottom right, that is the bioswale, which we'll talk about here in a little bit to improve water quality from our stormwater runoff. And then you can see curb lines going in. Our interior landscape islands are starting to take shape. You can see the two inspection canopies that I spoke about earlier. And then site lighting is being installed, which is all LED site lighting. So a few things that you'll see over the next couple of months on the project is really, again, the finished surface is going down. So we're getting ready to start placing pavement, concrete, things of that nature. The guardhouse will be constructed. And then, most importantly, the landscape will start going in as the final touches. So this site will have 466 trees planted on it, several hundred shrubs that we're going to talk about here in the next slide, as well as a plethora of area of green space that the site previously didn't have. Next slide, please. So the next piece of the design here we're going to talk about is sustainable infrastructure. Next slide. So some of the sustainable improvements that we designed into this project is 20% of the tractor employee parking stalls are ready for electrical vehicle charging, or we've installed that infrastructure. What that means is the underground conduits, the electrical equipment is all ready to go if Target is to take the next steps with that electrical vehicle charging in the future. We have energy efficient site lighting throughout the entire site that you could see, going up in the previous photo. And then our landscaping plan conforms to the landscaping ordinance with native planting selections, the interior green space, as well as the extensive plantings around. So you can see the little green, brown, and yellow circles on the screen here. Those are all the trees that we're planting on site. And then on the north property line, or the top of the image here, is where all those shrubs are. So we have an ornamental fence and then a line of shrubs to improve the sight lines. As you look at, onto the property from Lawndale Avenue or from the north. And then in the bottom left-hand corner, or the bottom kind of left center of the site here, you can see our bioswale. So this bioswale is a little unique, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but I just want to point out all the plantings in it, which is slightly different than what we constructed at the flow center. And then the last piece, all the landscape areas here are going to be irrigated with water efficient irrigation system. Next slide, please. So another big piece of our sustainable improvements is our stormwater management system. So essentially what this is, it's how we're maintaining and containing all the drainage or stormwater runoff during a rain event. So how the system works is the water will obviously hit the parking lot surface. It will then flow towards what we call aggregate infiltration trenches, or a French drain of sorts. And what that French drain is intended to do is obviously collect the stormwater runoff, but it's our first BMP, or our best management practice. And what that trench is going to do is going to improve water quality. So any, dirt or, kind of dust from the parking lot that gets picked up in that rainwater will be, collected in those trenches before it gets into our underground detention, which is what you can see in the two bottom images here on this slide. So instead of having, bioswales throughout, we have underground detention to meet our stormwater requirements. And that's also a BMP, because that's going to allow for some of those particulates or sediments to settle out in there. And then also our underground structures have a flow restriction as well. So we're slowly releasing water to the sanitary and ship canal or to the system under Lawndale Avenue. Next slide, please. So I spoke about the bioswale a little bit ago, and that's in the southwest corner of the site. The bioswale is our second BMP, or almost last BMP on the property. And what's unique about this bioswale that we've designed and built is that not only does it have native plantings, so deep-rooted vegetation in the bottom of the swale, but it also has an abundance of trees, which is a little unique. So we're going to allow for additional tree planting, but we're going to use those trees to, again, improve water quality before that stormwater runoff makes its way to the sanitary and ship canal. And the last key thing to note here is the site is surpassing the stormwater ordinance requirements. Next slide, please. So in the next few slides here, we're going to talk about the traffic plan and then some of the signage, no idling, things of that nature that we'd spoken to previously and we've added to since the last time we spoke. Next slide, please. So this slide is our no idling plan that we worked with the city and others on. So what this does is it's a series of signage on site that indicates, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, that trucks are not supposed to keep their engines running while they're on site. Furthermore, our tenant Target, has made a commitment to adhere to the state and municipal no idling ordinances and requirements as well. And then to further this plan, we've also added no turn signs at the entrance to the site and as well as the access road in between the flow center and the fleet storage yard. Just as another level of indication that trucks are not supposed to go north on Lawndale Avenue into the community or the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So in addition to the no idling plan, this is the actual traffic plan. So there's two primary routes for the vehicles to get to and from the fleet storage yard. The first is north on Pulaski Avenue to James O'Connor Road, which is just north of the flow center or Exchange 55. And then James O'Connor east to the access road, which is in between the fleet storage yard and Exchange 55. And then from the access road onto the fleet storage yard property. And then a secondary route is obviously through the flow center to the access road and then over to fleet storage yard and then vice versa on the way back out. Again, prior to this project commencing, there was a commitment made that no trucks will go north on Pulaski Road or Lawndale Avenue. Again, north of the CN railroad tracks or 33rd Street. And then in addition to that, we have elected to add some more signage to that access road in James O'Connor Road that is, specifically speaking to the truck drivers to exit to Interstate 55, as you can see from the bottom right-hand image. And then when they're inbound or coming to the site, they're going, following the signage that says the 3305 South Lawndale Avenue truck entrance and giving them, clean direction as to where to go and what route to follow. A couple other key points to note on the traffic plan or traffic in general for this project is from the prior use, we're seeing a 30% reduction in traffic volume. So what that means is there's roughly about 700 movements per day or trips or trucks coming in and out of the fleet storage yard prior to our acquisition of it. And then in the current projections, the Target team is anticipating anywhere from 400 to 500 trucks coming to and from the site on any given day. So that'd be 200 inbound, 200 outbound. And that's really at peak season. That's not at normal operation. That would be at its highest point. And then again, to further reduce traffic, half of those 400 to 450 movements are only going to be to and from the flow center on an average basis. So that result in less congestion then, or trucks on Pulaski Road as well. Next slide, please. So I'm going to hand it over here to Corey Rosales with our team to speak about our community engagement.
Thank you, Nick. My name is Crima Rosales. Hi, everyone. And I'm the Corporate Affairs Manager at HRP. Today, I'll be discussing opportunities that I help manage, such as our workforce development, summer internships, yearly scholarships, and workshops in Chicago. Moving on to the Fleet Storage Yard's economic and workforce impact. Over 100 union construction and related project jobs are estimated to be created over the lifetime of the construction period. As Nick had mentioned, the construction period length is being about 1 year. Once the project is completed and turned over to the tenant, its operating phase will increase the approximate 2,000 jobs that exist at the adjacent Flow Center known as Exchange 55. HRP has awarded scholarships for the last 3 years, and I'm so happy to let everyone know that we are continuing this program for the 4th year. We've heard great success stories from previous recipients who have ventured off to schools like UIC, Loyola, Yale, and really other amazing schools after receiving their associates. This year's scholarship is a little different, and I'll touch on the details and preferred qualifications in the next few slides. We are also looking for interns. If you are a Little Village student looking to learn about brownfield real estate, construction management, environmental sustainability, logistics, or engineering, please send me your resume at the email that will pop up on the last slide. If you don't have a resume, don't worry, just send me an email telling me you're interested. A lot of our interns do come in not having a resume, but when they leave with a LinkedIn, a resume, and headshot, just ready to face the world. Just send me an email. Again, like I said, at the end of the slide, that email will pop up. We are nearing close to hosting 100 interns in our program across the platform. In the past few years, they have left feeling confident and empowered after the 6-week program. As a company, we understand it is our responsibility as a collective to give our youth the tools they need to succeed. So if you are interested in an internship, please send me an email. We are also hosting quarterly workshops with our partner, Hasia and Bear Construction, and I'll touch upon our next workshop as well. So moving on to the next slide, to project stakeholder engagement and workforce development. We are so fortunate to be able to partner with impactful organizations in Little Village and surrounding communities. This past Friday, to celebrate Earth Day, the Lawndale Triangle Community Garden graciously allowed 20 HRP and Bear construction team members into their space, and they allowed us to help them prepare for this year's activities. Team members pulled weeds, turned soil, cut the grass, planted flowers, picked up trash, amongst other activities in their garden. We got a few blisters. I also want to point out the Carrera por la Paz 5K is coming up in June, and HRP has come up as their top sponsor for the 3rd year in a row. And among other great organizations that have allowed us to partner with them, we are so grateful that we are able to support their mission of these great organizations. If you are an organization that would like to partner with us as well, send me an email to hrpinfo.midwest@hilcoglobal.com. That'll pop up at the end of the slide, but we do really care and want to nurture relationships with local organizations and in the surrounding communities. Moving on to the next slide on project stakeholder and workforce development engagement. I do want to thank these organizations for our continued engagement and their comments regarding the storage yard. It's important for us as a company to engage organizations who advocate for small businesses, the creation of jobs, minority-owned, women-owned local businesses. Illinois Hispanic Chamber, Little Village Chamber, Hasia, the Little Village Economic Workforce Group, local union organizations, state and local public officials have been instrumental on this redevelopment, and we do thank you for that. We also do have a website that you could see at the bottom of this slide, www.exchange-55.com. Lawndale, right there down at the bottom. We do post bi-weekly, thank you, where the cursor just was. We do post bi-weekly updates in regards to the project's status. So I do advise, if you are ever interested to know what kind of progress we've made on site, to be able to go and look at that. Moving on to the scholarship application details. So in previous year, the scholarship was for recipients to attend any of the 7 city colleges of Chicago for 2 years. This year, we have opened it up to allow recipients to use a scholarship to any 4-year accredited university, as well as the 7 city colleges of Chicago. The first year students, those recipients will receive $5,000, and as long as the scholars maintain their enrollment, they'll be receiving an additional $5,000 their second academic year. I do encourage any and everyone to apply to this. You'll see the QR code down at the bottom. The deadline is approaching next Friday. If you have any troubles filling out that application, again, feel free to reach out to me at the email hrpinfo.midwest@hilcoglobal.com. I'd be more than happy to help you. I've actually helped a few students already apply for this, and we want to make sure that students can continue to pursue their dreams. Next slide. Moving on to the preferred scholarship qualifications. So these are preferred qualifications for the scholarship. You don't necessarily have to have all of these, but these are preferred. We want the scholarship to go to the Little Village neighborhood. So if you live in area code 60623 and 60608, I advise please apply. You can pursue like I said earlier, pursuing a degree at one of the 7 city colleges of Chicago or at any 4-year accredited university, minimum GPA 2.0. And there is a preference for students with professional career goals interested, again, in real estate, environmental sustainability, business construction management, manufacturing, engineering, IT. Our scholarship recipients last year were interested in engineering and construction management. So we wish them the best as they go on to their 2nd year for the scholarship. And we also, if you are the application does not require you to be a U.S. citizen. You can be a DACA recipient or a non-U.S. citizen. So we really want to be as flexible as possible for those who apply. Again, you can scan this QR code down at the bottom and it will link you straight to the application. I can't say it enough. If you need any help applying, please reach out to me. So moving on to the upcoming project management workshop, partnership with Hasia and Bear Construction. This second workshop will revolve around the topic of optimizing your projects and discussing the common challenges contractors face, including scheduling, change orders, and the submittal process. We'll explore different project management softwares and help businesses narrow down what works best for them. The reason that this workshop came about was after sitting down with Hasia and Bear Construction, we wanted to understand what some of the barriers that woman-owned, minority-owned, and local businesses face when wanting to do business with for larger projects. So this second workshop really is around what does project management look like. Again, our next upcoming workshop. Our first one was in January. Our second one will be May 11th from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. at Hasia's office. And you'll see the QR code as well. If you scan it, if you want to hover your phone over it and scan it, you'll actually be able to register right there. If you have any issues, again, feel free to send me an email and I would be more than happy to register you and your business. And we can move out to the next slide. All right, so here is the email that I had mentioned, hrpinfo.midwest@hilcoglobal.com. Again, please do not be shy. Reach out to me with any questions that you may have. And I have also listed our office number right there. If you would like to get in contact with me via phone, you can reach out to me there. So thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Let's move into question and answer. Corey, why don't you stay in the same vein? How did you do community outreach for this virtual meeting?
That is a great question. Thank you for asking that, community member. So there were a total of 3 email blasts that were sent out starting 2 weeks ago. There was also a distribution of flyers across the Little Village neighborhood. And there were a few social media posts that were used as a supplemental way to reach people. So we also did share this with partners to please share it with the community via social and newsletters.
Thank you, Corey. Nick, why don't we throw you a question? Is this project under a PLA, which means a project labor agreement? And how many union jobs have been created with this project, and what trades are involved?
Thanks, Jazz. And yes, the project is under a PLA. Our general contractor had made that commitment and come to an agreement with the Chicago trade unions. And then roughly, we have approximately 100 union jobs that this project's created. And then, on the other project, the Exchange 55 project, that was again under a PLA, and we had roughly around 700 union jobs.
Thank you, Nick. How is Hilco addressing any community concerns like truck traffic, and how will these rules be enforced? Nick, why don't you take this one too?
Yeah, again, great question. And as I alluded to in the kind of traffic plan, and if we can hop back to that slide, please. So again, there's been a commitment made for both projects that no trucks will go north on Pulaski or Lawndale into the community. And then again, the 2 primary routes to the project, as you can see in red and blue here on this image, are to Interstate 55 on Pulaski Road to either the flow center directly or the access road or James O'Connor Road on the north side of the flow center over to the Fleet Storage Yard.
Thank you, Nick. We have a raised hand from Alderman Rodriguez. Corey, can you unmute the Alderman? We will allow you to, we will have you answer your question, ask your question, and we'll try to answer it live.
Thank you. Since my name was brought up a number of times, I think it's important for me to be clear about what I've asked of Hilco. We were very clear in our communications for the last several months in asking for an in-person meeting. Community members have asked for that. I held a meeting and gave you guys 3 weeks notice to attend that meeting. And you decided not to attend. Regardless of whether you like what people have to say or whether you agree with them, it's important to be in a room with them, listen, so that we can be in spirit of learning and understanding. And it's a part of restoring justice to our community to have our requests honored. And to be quite honest, I'm very upset about the format of this hearing, of this virtual meeting. My office, and we've sent a letter, and I'm gonna ask you to respond. We've asked for the following: to recommit to no truck traffic into the community. And we need clarity about how you're achieving that. We want, and many in our community want, for Hilco to pay for soil sampling. And I think that's a great idea. And I think that should be a part of what you're presenting here today. We know that Hilco is not the provider or the entity that has the trucks, but you own these lots. And we should hear from you about your plans for electrification of the fleets that are in your purview. We believe there needs to be an immediate plan on that electrification and continued air monitoring that happens real time. And the fact is that Target needs to be at this table as well. And I want to be clear, they also were invited to my community meeting in person in late March and did not attend. Our community deserves more, and I expect more. We'll continue to demand for more. And I just want to reiterate that I would like these questions answered today, and I think they are pertinent to the Fleet Storage Yard.
Alderman, it's again, over the course of this project, it's been a privilege to work with you and your staff on this project and, you know, the portion of the Exchange 55 project as well. We valued the dialogue with you and your office, and, you know, we appreciate conversations over the last few months. You know, we've made frequent and transparent community engagement a priority, and we will continue to explore all possible ways to execute on that commitment. You know, again, with what we've done and what we continue to do with the website updates and these types of meetings. You know, as far as the other, you know, requests that you've made, we're always open to ongoing conversations. But, you know, as far as, you know, sampling and other commitments, there's just things we can't commit to at this time. But like I said, we look forward to continuing to have those conversations with you.
Thank you, Nick. Nick, why don't we stay with you on how are you improving access to and from the site?
Thank you, Jazz. So again, staying focused on this slide here. So one of the key improvements that we're making is actually on the Exchange 55 property. We're creating a new entrance of sorts, as you can see kind of in that circle right off the northeast corner of the building, which will allow for, again, roughly half of the movements to and from the site, to and from the Fleet Storage Yard, to just happen on that access road. The other improvement we're making is we're fully improving the access road. So currently that access road is just a gravel road, and that's how it was previously used, is just an old gravel road. So we're going in and putting in a complete City of Chicago Department of Transportation pavement section, curbs, landscaping, and lighting to improve access in that specific location. And then looking back a little bit at Exchange 55, another improvement was, again, improving the traffic signals along the Pulaski corridor at 36th Street, 35th Place, and James O'Connor Road for more fluid movements in that area.
Thank you, Nick. Corey, why don't we get your voice in here? What efforts have you made to diversify the construction workforce on your site?
Thank you, Jazz. We have partnered with HACIA, the Hispanic American Construction Industry Association, to be able to monitor our minority, woman-owned, and local business reporting. And part of our partnership with HACIA and other chambers like Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the Little Village Chamber of Commerce is to introduce us to businesses that are minority and woman-owned businesses. So that is one of the ways we try to diversify this. This also goes into, it aligns with the workshops that we have been partnering with HACIA and Bear Construction and trying to, again, remove those barriers that some of these businesses typically face when it comes to submitting requests for proposals, or even just trying to expand their network with developers and construction companies. So those are a few ways that we do try and diversify the construction workforce.
Thank you, Corey. Nick, let's bring you back. What positive economic impact can the community expect from this additional fleet yard development?
So in addition to the, you know, thousands of jobs that were created at the Flow Center, there'll be additional jobs created, permanent jobs created by the Fleet Storage Yard. You know, on top of that, we have over 100 construction jobs that have been, you know, created here. And then to, you know, Corey's point, we've done a great deal of engagement with women-owned and minority businesses to bring them into this project and work with them.
Thank you, Nick. And why is this project better than the prior use?
Another great question. So just sticking with a couple of things, one, the operations from, targeting our tenant are going to be much more orderly than it was prior on this site. Also, that 30% in traffic or truck volume that I spoke to earlier. And on top of that, we're adding, roughly 4 acres or just over 4 acres of green space to this property, the 466 trees, the shrubs, and other, distinct improvements that just obviously weren't there prior. Last, we're fully paving the site, which again, I think is another improvement from what was prior there. It's just a gravel yard, which will, help with air quality in the area.
Thank you, Nick. We have a question about air monitoring and a request to be done by an outside org and not Hilco. Can you once again reiterate that?
Yeah, so on the air quality piece for this project, we made a commitment back in July to produce an air quality impact study, and we voluntarily shared that with Chicago Department of Public Health in 2 different versions. Also, we're working with the Chicago Department of Public Health on a potential air monitoring program for the Little Village Industrial Corridor. We're looking forward to concluding those conversations.
Thank you, Nick. And I'm just trying to ensure that we have answered all the questions in the chat. Nick, why don't you give the answer for the independent soil testing one more time, just in case if someone missed it?
So again, that's not a commitment we can make at this time. But again, both projects have gone through the site remediation program where there was ample testing done on both to make sure that constituents were removed that should not be on that site. And both projects have sought and Exchange has already received a no further remediation letter saying that those remedial activities have been closed. We're doing the same on the Fleet Storage Yard.
Thank you, Nick. And about how many trees will be on site?
Again, there's 466 trees that'll be planted on the Fleet Storage Yard alone. The access road is going to get another 15 to 20. We're still finalizing that layout. And then there were, several hundred trees that we planted at the Flow Center, the Exchange 55 site.
Thank you, Nick. So that seems to be all the questions that we had in the chat. I want to thank everyone for attending our information session. Again, I want to reiterate that this recording and the questions will be posted within our website in a couple of weeks. Thank you again for attending the meeting. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.